You were born into a Muslim family. You are of Pakistani heritage, lived in Kuwait, and you have clearly been very outspoken on Islam and what you believe is uh, the negative impacts it's been having within Britain and beyond. Uh, I would say that has probably caused you some security concerns, and I don't want to make you say anything that you don't want to. But if I think about your time on the internet as a face, doing podcasting, with the things that come from doing that, from taking an outspoken view against Islam, is has it been worth it?
It's always worth it to speak the truth, right? If not for others, it's for yourself. It's worth it, because then the more true you are to yourself, um, the better journey that you can take, right? The better investigation that you can take into your own life and stuff, right? You're not hiding behind false things. You're not living a lie. So that's always been worth it. I think so. That's the reason why I left Islam as well, because I could have just kept on pretending to be a Muslim, living in a Muslim country. I had every opportunity over there. I would have been far more successful in whatever I'm doing right now had I, chosen that path, even in my profession and stuff, because I had more opportunities, I had more connections and stuff. But I chose not to do it because I couldn't be true to myself, and I was like, well, that's not a way to live, because I've never been someone who's been interested in money. Maybe people can say it because I've had money, but I have, that's not really the case. you know our family has seen ups and downs, been in wars. When I was 4 years old, lost everything. Then family gained a bit more, we living up and down the middle class sort of life and stuff, where people can say, okay, you're always comfortable enough, that's why you never cared about money. I was like, I don't think so, that's the thing. I think so, I just never did cared that more about money than myself.
Mm.
Sorry, more about money than my spirit,
Mm.
right? And uh and how I connect that with the world, right? That's has been more of my concern. So in that sense, I think so it has been worth it, and this is the reason why I left it at that point, because I just couldn't live a lie. When I investigated more and more, it took me 6 years to actually research more and convince myself. More than research, I spent those 6 years convincing myself not to leave Islam, right?
Mm.
And finding ways of not leaving it, delving into different elements of it. And it's like, okay, don't leave, like, because I had a lot to lose, right? But when I came to that point where it became like, okay, no, there is no other way. I cannot condone the actions of this prophet, of this false prophet. This it is not giving me the spiritual satisfaction. It is not connecting me to the universe, sort of like the cosmos, sort of a thing. Like, it's not, inspiring me to be a better human being. Why should I condone this? Because if I condone this, then I'm condoning it for other people who know me as well, right? And I'm sending them to a path of hell through my actions, through my inaction, right? So I had to do it in the same way that I had to do over there. So when I see something, I have to speak it as well, because it's always, I think so, it's always worth it, no matter the consequences, to speak the truth. And if you have the faith, you can change the way that you speak the truth, right? Which is something that I think so we wanted to talk about, maybe.
Mm.
It's something that I've been reflecting upon, of maybe I need to change my tact of how I do it. Maybe these times since October 7th has, ruffled me a bit too much, right? And where I have been engaging out of character in the same topics that I've been talking about before as well, but I've been engaging in them differently before to how I've started engaging with them now. And maybe I need to, like, self reflect, go through a period of self reflection, see, like, okay, what am I doing? Who am I involving myself with? Are they actually beneficial? Do I see them being beneficial? Am I you know, uh, am I that person which people might perceive or not? Like, can I, so those sort of things, I think so. I need to go through a self reflection for. But like, to answer that again, like, yeah, it's always worth it to speak the truth.
Some of the people that you have talked about in recent posts, you talked about some people being grifters. You talked about some people perhaps not particularly welcoming you taking different viewpoints on them. Perhaps people you were once closer to. I again don't know who these people are, and I suppose there's another point on there, which is your dismay. Maybe this is a separate point. Your dismay at older commentators, politicians, and all the rest of it seeming to outsource or delegate the hard conversations to younger people. Is this all part of your change in approach? Is it that you're effectively trying to steer clear of people that you think are political opportunists or people who are just trying to, they're too single and narrow-minded, and you just want to be able to create your own more independently minded platform? Is this what's happening?
So it's more about like concentrating on what I want to do rather than what others want to do, right? Because everyone has their own idea. Everyone is doing things in a way that they think is going to get them the win that they want, right? I just don't, overall, it's not about like particular individuals, it's everyone, right? I just don't see overall people have had that restoration of the spirit to be able to take those decisions beyond themselves, right? Or to explore those things beyond them. I think so people are, so many people are, they're trying, but they're still so concerned about being the hero rather than saving the people, that that's their prime motive. And that's what I see with everyone, right? Now there are good elements out there in all of those people, right? They're not like, everyone is not just completely bad. Even when it comes to reform party and stuff, they all have good elements. I want to speak to their good parts, right? I want to help that good part, people to focus on the good parts, and maybe, change them, right? Sort of like save the souls of those people. But overly, I also don't want to associate with people more, like officially, like sort of associate with anyone. And that's just because I think so I want to go on my own journey, and see where it leads me. Because like, it can change you trying to live up to other people's expectations of who you are supposed to be rather than who you are, can change you. And it's not as if like, oh, I want to become like, some superhero or something like that, or some like, the ultimate savior or something. No, I just want to focus on myself more and my family more, and like, do the things around my community more, sort of a thing, right? Wherever that leads me, that will lead me. But I also think like I'm not fully equipped, uh have enough experience, have enough like a lot of things to be able to help people properly, right? So I want to concentrate on that as well. How do I build myself up personally so that I have more expertise than I have at the moment, so that I can bring about effective change, if change is going to come through me or via my help, right? So I can give better help rather than like trying to hold um, the things at the moment. So and that means that I need to have that space of exploration. I cannot be explicitly for one person or the other person, because I'm trying to explore the ideas, right? So I can't be like pro this person completely and completely shut down the other person, and stop my learning from them, where I could have had learning from them to actually bring about the change, right? So, yeah, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
No, you
yeah.
you are. I quite enjoyed you saying that ultimately, if at any point in the future there seems to be a duty incumbent on you to step up to the plate, you need to be effective and competent, and you can't just do that through following the algorithmic trends. And in many ways, this is the big thing about being a podcaster with modest followings like you and I, is that you can either choose to go all in on the engagement and just go, right, I'm all about podcasting, only podcasting and carrying a certain message. But in the end, you've trained yourself up to become a spokesperson, but perhaps not actually that effective in what it is that you're trying to bring about, if anything, or at least things that you would support if it were to be brought about. And I struggle with similar things where I, from the beginning, have tried to maintain an independent focus and just look at areas that I'm interested in. That obviously can bring me back to politics and all the rest of it. But when you find yourself researching for things, guests, or just keeping up to date with all of the various trends that are going on in the country, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there, as you well know, is that you can then find yourself being caught up in inviting lots and lots of people on to speak about that thing. And before you know it, you've either theme captured yourself or audience captured yourself.
Yeah.
And I think when you're effectively just wanting to have good conversations with people, and when the time arises, I would say contributes to the cultural tide of change, or the tide of cultural change you want to see bring about, then you've got to find a fine balance. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll just go all in on, right, it's cultural change, therefore I just need to go for all the big political points that I want to see happen. But then all of a sudden you'll find that other people might not want to come on your podcast because they think, well, it's not going to serve their purpose to come on and talk about their historical investigation into the peasants' revolt or something, and all the rest of it. But you'd find that fascinating. You'd quite welcome that conversation, less about riots and this, that, and the other. But before you know it, you almost have no choice but to continue going on. So yeah, it's hard. I think this is the thing that's tough for all of us in this age, is that clearly we can be memed into a totally different character and a life, and I think there's certainly a space for all of the things we are viewing and seeing online. But if that becomes your sole locus of focus, as we picked up in other parts of this conversation, you can find yourself becoming dehumanized insofar as you're not really engaging in things beyond the political. So there is no room for faith, there's no room for family, there's no room for community. Yeah.
And you're limiting your learning a lot. And this is something, I think so. This is something that the reason why I came up to that decision as well is because, I need to go through more period of self-reflection, but I already had this reflection, I'm not a podcaster. I have a podcast,
yes.
Right? So I'm not doing it for the clicks and views, because what I see is on new media, all of these people, they talk about, it's so how different it is from mainstream media. It is not just in name, just in production. It is the same. It operates the same. So the things that they are exploring and investigating and stuff like that, they'll only do it if it gives them the views and the clicks, because they already are audience captured, whether they like it or not, because that's how they earn money now, right? So they're, even in that sense, some of them are even worse than mainstream media, because in mainstream media, because you have the apparatus of the whole, let's say BBC, they can do documentaries about something that will only have 1,000 views, but they can afford to have that, right? And that might be a really interesting a documentary that maybe later, or 10 years on, people will look upon it, and from 1,000 it will become 10 million views eventually, right? And a person delving in new media cannot afford to do that. So their scope of investigation becomes lower and lower and lower, and it only concentrates on what is the attention of the people right now, right? They can only investigate those things. So they're limiting themselves so much. And this is what I decided, but that's not why I started my little podcast. And that's the reason why it is still a little podcast, is because I want to have conversations to learn from myself, to grow. And that's what I was trying to do. So I don't want to say, I won't have this people and that people. I want to have people in topics that I'm interested in, and I want to explore topics have my history and mythology episodes and investigate those topics, because I'm researching for myself. If someone wants to view it, that's a plus, but that's not really my focus.